Mani Padme Hum Hello everyone, here and there, and thank you very much for joining. So before we start the teachings, I'm sure you're already in that state of knowing the teachings, but we will do a specific warm-up to do this for the sake of all other times and places and people we may not think we are doing for, because often we do it, what is it in here for me type of thing, you know. What is it in here for me for tonight? Or usually that's all there is. But that prayer we do at the beginning is try to improve on that. How can we aspire to be beneficial by what we're doing now, later, tomorrow, week after, month, year, even many lifetimes after. And not just to ourselves, but for others, you know. And not just for the sake of this evening, but for the sake of many, many other occasions during which this teaching may just straight away strike like a thunderbolt. So with that kind of very inclusive way, we should say these prayers in the name of the Triple Gem. We don't swear by the name of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, unless we have a very ardent good cause to do altruistically. And so therefore calling in the name of the Triple Gem and for the sake of all living beings is a very noble tradition of Mahayana Buddhist teachings. And all Buddhist teachings do the same. It's just Mahayana emphasize that. You see all the Buddhists do prayers, joining their hands, sitting on their knees. They remember the qualities of the Buddha. It brings them lots of hope and peace when they remember the Buddha, when they believe in the Buddha and his teachings. And they also are taking steps towards the Buddha. So listening and studying the teaching is that. If we don't understand the teachings, we cannot quite do it. So that's why we're listening and learning, but not just for ourselves or today or this life or this body, but for very, very many, many purposes. So the time we give, energy we employ, and all of this will bear very, very good fruit. So thank you very much, everyone. So with this, we'll do the prayers first. Oyenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Atere Vijay Ladama by virtue Ajendala Ashare Buddha Vudu Endabu Dadama Sangha Adere Vijay Ladama by virtue Ajendala Ashare Buddha Vudu Endabu Dadama Sangha Adere Vijay Ladama by virtue Ajendala Ashare Buddha Vudu. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, or those never. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those never. may all be happiness, and the cause of happiness, may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering, may they never part from the happiness that no suffering, may they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far, according to the intelligence and predisposition of the Dharma, love and common So, as you know, we are here. Supreme Science is the highest kind of knowledge, which is called metaphysical, because it transcends the metaphysical understanding. It is not about matter. It is not about form. It is not about botany. It is not about biology. It is not about even physiology. It is about psychology. It is about your mind and how it can be freed from afflictive emotions. So that is so subtle. That is so subtle because when you have physical illnesses, they can X-ray them and they can blood test them and then can see actual actual things through the machine. But we are having to develop a mind that can do the scanning of these afflictive emotions. And if you are able to recognize those afflictive emotions, such as those we discussed before, it's not that they, as afflictive emotions, themselves are destroyed. They become knowledge. They become transmuted. They become recycled into the various reckonings and understandings. So the more you understand defilements, less the defilement persists. And when defilement no longer gives rise to any fault and effects that they used to have on you, then you will have the antidotal kind of effect in you, which we were talking about, discarding. The discarding is said to be a kind of a conventional word. Actually, there's nothing to discard. Defilements is a misunderstanding. It's a misapprehension as it is. But when you understand it, itself becomes understanding of it. So through the complete knowledge, this is what we talked about last week, about the 16 levels of the moments of the realizing the path of seeing, stages of seeing, stages of knowing. You wouldn't believe how many levels of the kind of steps you can take to understand. And when you understand the suffering, you forbear the suffering. The nature of suffering is that it is not permanent. But when we don't know the nature of suffering, we think it is. It is permanent. It is me. It is what is wrong with me. One doesn't see the prevalence of suffering and impermanence of them too. When you have the forbearance that they are impermanent, You forbear the suffering that appears to exist when you have the awareness that they are themselves impermanent. How long do they persist and how quickly they become impermanent is the knowledge, presence or lack of it. When the knowledge is lacking, the suffering seems to persist. When the medicine is not there, the symptoms of the illness continues. Yeah? So tonight we will look at these analogies of defilements, afflictive emotions, because these analogies help you to understand how they classify various categories of defilements in the Abhidharma, such as the 10 afflictions we talked about, 5 of which are afflictive obscurations, 5 of which are cognitive obscurations. So when we know those 10 cognitive and afflictive obscurations as affliction, then we know what other secondary afflictions each of them will give rise to, does give rise to. So even when you divide the 22 secondary afflictions, they are all subdivision out of those 10 afflictions we talked about. And then you could also see how many of them floods you, how many of them traps you, how many of them hinders you, how many of them are fetters. And so the teaching uses various kind of analogies in order to make you to know, how many of the defilements are universal, how many of them are not universal. They are just isolated defilements. Some defilements are isolated, it only occurs to certain times and place. Other defilements, like the 5 cognitive view-related afflictions, they are always universal. Universal in the sense they're just continuously there until you completely reach the path of seeing. So let's look at the analogies of afflictive emotions. Oh, that includes all of them, yeah? Some are more, some of the afflictions will fit more to particular analogies than others. But the moment you understand, like the first analogy of the afflictions are regarded as poisons. We are told that we have 3 poisons. They don't say you have 3 afflictions. They say you have 3 poisons. They say, what are they? Because I don't want to have any poison. If you say you have 3 afflictions, we were not so shocked. They say, you have 3 poisons straight away. Straight away they say, no, I don't want to have any poison. So remember that when we see, if you have poison in your food or in or whatever, you're poisoned, So you have suffering. So if you're afflicted, you have poisoned. So you're suffering because you're poisoned. Your mind is poisoned by enmity or greed or desire or ignorance or whatever it is, craving, whichever of those things. You're poisoned by this. So the analogies of poison straight away make us, no wonder I have this problem with this, I have that problem with this, I'm not happy, I'm not contented with this, I'm not contented with this, I'm so dissatisfied with this. Oh, it's due to my poison. So what is the poison? So straight away this image of poison enables oneself to feel sick, to not unwell, So that's why when you think about the poison, if you're poisoned, that's the truth of suffering. That helps. So then he said, how did I get poisoned? So you want to find out the cause of the poison. So therefore you go into origin of the poisoning. Where did I catch the poison? So is it a place? It is a time? Where and when and how did you get poison? Straight away go for the origin, truth of origin. So that's exactly what is called you have the gradual kind of realizations of forbearance with the poison, but interested to find the origin of it. Yeah, In the meantime, you're able to forbear and be patient with the suffering that's in there. But you wanted to know, how did you get poison? Where did you get poison? So that you look for the origin. So that's the second noble truth, isn't it? But when you look at the poison as an analogy, so how did you get poison? As soon as you know you have a poison and the root of the poison, you want to put an end to the poisoning. So that's the truth of cessation. You want to put an end to the poison. You don't want the poison to spread. You want the poison to stop. Yeah, you want the poison to stop spreading from right arm to left arm or whatever it is. You see? And then you will do anything to realize the stoppage, and that's the path. Yeah. So that's why analogies are used in elucidating the teachings. So now each of these analogies I'm going to share, you got to think along those 4 lines, four noble truths. Then, okay, so moment you take steps to not get poison anymore like that, because if you take this step now, that poison will be stopped, spreading, and its symptoms wouldn't persist. And that's the discard. That's the discard of the poison. Yeah, your poison removed. Poison removed means your greed, your desire, your wanting what you want. If you're angry because we didn't get what you want, that's the poison. It's not because he didn't give it to you. Because you want it so badly, therefore you are angry that they didn't give. It looks like what they didn't give, but your desiring of it makes it poisoned. It poisons you. So if you don't apprehend that your desiring if you don't apprehend that your desire is a poison, you will never discard it. So you will go in a vicious cycle. So while you want to get well, free from the poison, you haven't discovered the true origin of the poison, let alone finding a cessation and a path leading to it. So that's why people are still miserable. They still haven't reconciled, made peace with this issue or that person or whatever. It's because your anger against him or desire of what you want and what this person didn't allow you to get. All these things muddled up. And you're so crook still now. And you will stay like that until you discard that poisonous attitudes called craving. I want my way. I want my way. It doesn't sound like craving. It sounds like my right or something. I want my way. You didn't listen to me. And the other one said the same thing. They're both are poisoned by each other's opinions. And I want my way, and she wants his way, and there is the poison, clash of poison. Neither is willing to apprehend the poison of theirs. They think other one's domination or whatever it is, and therefore we become poisoned. See, that's why Buddha used they say in the Buddhist teachings, 3 poisons. And straight away people say, what are the 3 poisons? They become interested. It's a language that elucidates the teachings. Yeah. So you want to be free of poison? Yes, you want to be free of poison. Yes. If you have a disease in the body, you want that to be removed. You want that infected part to be cut. They call surgery. Dharma knowledge is surgery. You intellectually, surgically remove your cancerous thought and views and afflictions. They can't medically remove because they can't see it. They can't x-ray it. But only by mind that actually knows. And this is Abhidharma. Abhidharma, supreme science. No naked eye can see it. Yeah, no listening device can detect it. No x-ray can see it. until it has does some have done some biological damage. Then they can say, "Oh, you got cancer." They say, "Oh, you got a stone, or you got a blood clot, or whatever." That by that time it's already become physicalized. But they still wouldn't know it's poison. They say, "You got this, you got that." The Buddha sees the poison in the mind. But the seer of the poison is not poison, is it? It's a medicine. So knowing the poison turns the poison into knowledge. Yeah. Therefore, destruction, there is no poison to be destroyed if not knowing the poison is the poison. Knowing it, understand why it gave rise to, and you uncause the giving, that which caused to give rise to. So you just change the factors. Through complete knowledge of the poison, then you have the ability to prevent it from arising. Yeah, prevent it from rising. Cessation. Yeah, act of stopping act of cessation, making the cessation happen, is the path. So that's when we say discarding meaning you do not have this mentality saying, complaining about sufferings. You hardly complain. You complain less if you have done the first, it's called foreknowledge. It's called, forbearance. You forbear sufferings. Sufferings by nature is impermanent. The moment you forbear, it disappears. Give peace a chance. Why you have to give peace a chance? Because let the conflict subside. If you don't refuel the conflict, it does not become conflict anymore. Whatever was previous conflict, it will subside, and there will be peace. But if you're constantly charging, adding the very cause that is poison, and it doesn't abate at all. So knowing how to stop the causation is the uncausing. That cause cessation. The act of causing the cessation is path. See? So where's the poison? So poison is become medicine. You have to bring the medicine that can stop the poison. That is the truth of the path and the truth of cessation. Then you get well. The second analogy is fire. The fire is all afflictions are like fire. Some like anger. People actually say fiery person. People actually say, without studying Buddhism, someone who's angry and short-tempered, there's a fiery person. The person is firing verbally. You can see the angry person, where they speak. You can watch them angry because of their physical body gestures. Their whole thing is very much fired up. The whole blood just rushes up, and face turns red. Fire, fire burns. Fire burns. Likewise, the afflictive emotions of anger and negativities, whatever is belong to that, like enmity and hostility. It's talking about nine kind of hostility. Not only angry now, but you're angry from yesterday, many years ago. Angry not because of to you, but someone you loved, and it so happened with that situation. Then you're still angry to them because of your loved one had a difficult time with that. So you're also angry with them. So therefore your anger, your fire is firing all the time. Therefore you have enmity, you have hostile. You wouldn't give them any positive thing because you're always firing. Your bad thoughts firing, your bad language is firing, and you may be physically very, very aggressive. All this, firing, meaning you are actually shooting. What does the fire, when you fire, what does do? The fire you fire lands on the object and it burns them as well. What did it do? It didn't help the other object. It also turned them into angry, turned them incinerated. You know, incredible. All the weapons they do is all fires. Fire. Even the act is called fire. The action is called fire. Not just the thing is burns, but even the doing is a firing. And usually they aim to hit on a particular target of fire. Why? Enmity. You know, they don't want to fight anywhere in the sky. They want to fight with a particular object they are aiming to. The enmity. The object is so hostile to this, and because of that, the person is burning in the inferno of hatred. Fire destroys. The afflictive emotions such as hatred and enmity destroys the person, and he forgets the good, he sees no good, and he destroys all his friendship, 10 years of friendship, gone out of the window because you fire some bad words, and with such venom of anger, and it's all the friendship, all the work that you've done to build, to do, it's all gone. It's destroyed. Like, have you seen any house burn fire? Completely destroyed, you know. Yeah, many people have destroyed each other by being under the sway and spell of the affliction. So if there is a fire, there is suffering, isn't it? There is a fire, straight away we call the fire engine. The fire has to put out as soon as possible. But then the fire truck comes, but they have to know where it's best to attack it, you know. So, yeah. They don't go, the fire is here, they don't go there. They will go where the fire is, try to put out, extinguish the fire where the fire is, you know. Where the worst fire is, they attack that. That's the origin. So origin of anger. What's the anger? Origin of anger is you didn't get what you want. You want your way, you didn't get, so you're angry. Not because they did or he did this, because you're so stubborn, wanting your own way, and you didn't get that. So the source of your anger is desire, that is ignorance, and therefore you're craving what you least need and want. You were ignorantly firing yourself. Anger is desire. The origin of anger is craving, the desire, and desire, craving, and ignorance of what they were wanting something that is not cause of happiness, but very cause of suffering. Not knowing it is cause of suffering, and they become poisoned, and therefore they got burnt. So what do? We bring the extinguisher. We have to put out the fire. We have to put out the fire to, that's the truth of cessation. We have to fire extinguisher. If you ever got a fire extinguisher, they say the building have no fire extinguisher, the building not safe, not fit to occupy. Have you got any fire extinguisher of your emotions in your up your sleeves? Fire extinguisher, practitioner of Dharma. We take refuge in the Buddha Dharma because we're supposed to have fire extinguisher. We take refuge in the Dharma so that we can extinguish the fire. We say mantra so that we can extinguish the fire. We meditate so that we can extinguish the fire. That's the truth of the path. Truth of the path is we are practicing, we are reciting mantra, we are meditating, and maybe 5-10 years ago you have very furious, then you have really seen some improvement in you. Now you do not have that many fit of anger as much as before because you have succeeded to control. Of course, total discarding of anger, enmity doesn't happen until you have path of seeing. You can suppress them. It's good. You can forbear them. You can see not only you can forbear the suffering, you have the knowledge of the benefit of the forbearance. You don't mind temporarily trying to suppress your emotions, but this is far more beneficial in the long run, and therefore you have the subsequent forbearance and subsequent knowledge of the forbearance. And hence you do not let the fire to inflame anymore. You extinguish the fire by practicing patience. By practicing patience and seeing the virtue of patience, even though it's hard, but foresee the virtue of patience in the long run, and foresee the harmfulness of anger in the long run, and temporarily it brings no benefit, but one thinks one completely can see, and know, one has now the foreknowledge, and one has the subsequent knowledge of the benefit of forbearance and the knowledge of the forbearance subsequently. And then the fire will be put out. The putting out of fire is done by following the path. See, that's why following the path is do not leave many combustible things around. So not only have you put out some fire, but you make sure you're not so combustible, you're not so irritable. So reduce your craving, reduce your I want my way. And that is the combustible we're talking about. Then you are actually following the path. Following the path is not picking up the problem again. You may have put the previous problem, you don't want to pick that again. Don't do the habit again. Don't repeat the habit. Elsewhere, the Four Noble Truths are given as this. They say, what's the noble truth of suffering? Noble truth of suffering is a burden. You are carrying the heavy burden, and then so much. And what is the origin of the burden? Your anger or your craving, or that made you to carry. And a truth of cessation is to get rid of the burden, just letting go, drop it. What is the truth of path? Not picking another one, not picking a new burden. I like that, yeah? So, what enables you to not to prevent the fire from appearing again is that do not leave many combustion material such as desire, such as I want my way. Just don't mind. It's good that you didn't get what you want, because you always get into trouble. You only want your way, and the best friend also you have argument, and your loved one also you argue, and you lost everything because you were in the fire. People lost everything in the fire. Remember? Yeah, so fire is a very useful analogy to show how much people lose themselves. The fire is the affliction of anger, affliction of enmity is a very, very sort of, thankfully it's not pervasive. Not pervasive in the sense it is not always there. Even you are jealous or you're arrogant or something like that. Anger is usually always desire, and it's desire's kind of pet. Anger is desire's pet. But anger is not always pervasive in other affliction. Thank goodness. So some afflictions like ignorance is very pervasive. You don't even know. Even if you're angry, ignorance is still there. So when you're desiring, craving something, you desire ignorance there. So ignorance is very, very pervasive, as are the most afflictive 5 views. They're all very, very pervasive. Whereas where the afflictive emotions, such as anger, thankfully is not as pervasive. It doesn't show the kind of enmity to everyone. It's actually shown to fixed entity or people or things. In the other place, the person might be very generous, very nice, very kind, very cordial. So it's not pervasively, thankfully, spreading, but it is very, very isolated, thank goodness. Like fire the fire is like that, Fire doesn't burn all the time. fire burn quickly, and then, unless you're able to put it out, it might go for days and weeks, like a forest fire or something. It doesn't occur all the time throughout all seasons. It occurs only in this fire dry season or something, But likewise, the afflictive emotions, the anger and hostility, is not as pervasive and universal as other affliction may have been. So if you put out the fire, then to prevent the fire you shouldn't have things that are all that burnables. So one who reduces his or her desire and craving is less angry. So that's why curtailing desire, whatever it is, things you own or you do or you want, the more lesser things you have, the contentment is wealth that surpasses artificial wealth, which is actually poverty. Artificial wealth is without contentment is poverty. The contentment is real. Those who have much contentment, they hardly get furious and angry, They hardly get angry because they can accept things. They don't have a lot of craving and wanting, so therefore they're not so easily upsettable to become angry. So your anger is caused by your craving. You want a particular way. You want your way, and if that doesn't go, then you're quite easy to become burned by fire again. So therefore, if you want to follow the noble truth of the path, which is the Fourth Noble Truth, then try to curtail the cause of the fire, which is desire and craving. So then you see that because anger, the fire doesn't burn. Doesn't burn like the flood goes very straight fast, but the fire only can burn if there are combustible ones. If there are no combustible things, fire doesn't burn it. So that's why it's important to prevent the cause of the fire. That prevention of the cause of fire and following the path is curtailing craving and desire. And then chances of you becoming angry and furious is dramatically reduced. Why? You follow the Noble Truth of path. That's why the most good practitioners are trying to practice contentment, and not want more, but have contentment with the few things they have. That is then truth of the path, the really true path. Third analogy is flood. The flood is very, very big in this Abhidharma. There's, four of the afflictions are flood. Like flood of seeking sensual pleasure, wanting pleasure for me, pleasure. So one is so flooded by the strong passion or desire that one doesn't even think it's a flood. One thinks it's a kind of a enjoyment. One is so lured. One is so attracted like the moth to the candlelight. One doesn't know that going nearer to the flame is going to burn oneself. He doesn't. It's just his passion for the joy or delight of getting near the light is so strong. He doesn't know anything. So therefore, the floods of strong seeker of the pleasure. It's like a pleasure. That flood is like a flood. 4 floods and 4 yokes, they call it. Because if they also flood, there are 4 floods as well as 4 yokes. What does yokes do? The word yoga comes from the yoking together. So when we say yoke, means together. Yoke means together. You are yoked by your karma, desire. Your desire is so seizing. You are seized by your desire. You're yoked with your desire, and you don't want. So all the sentient beings in the desire realm have the yoke of desire. They're always desiring. So there is no time they're not flooded by desire. So desire is most prominent. floods. Flood, And another thing is flood of existential need, You just need this, you need this, I need this. Nobody thinks it's indulgence. So the needs are so many. So you flood of existential necessities, I need this, I need this, I need this, need this. They don't realize every need is agreed. So it looks like a fairly common sense. Oh, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And people, I don't need that. I don't need that. That would be free of the yoke, free of flood. But always, I need this, I need this, I need this. So these needy people, incredible, isn't it? Because the more needy they are, that much they're flooded. The flood is so devastating. You don't know. You don't know there's flood unless you're in it. So by the time you are in it, you're already knee deep. Knee deep, you're in flood. So you're knee deep with craving and desire of what you particularly want. Then third flood is flood of views, your opinions. Views, your opinions. You're completely kind of sort of dictated by your views, and you don't want to change it or drop it. You don't want to think anything. You want your views. So most people are disagreeing, fighting, parting because their views are irreconcilable. And they don't mind losing because they don't know how they're losing everything in the flood of views. They don't even know is their view is so erroneous, so mistaken, and they don't know. By the time the flood is there, it's too late to know there is a flood. It's like that. When you are so opinionated by the views. That's why in Buddhism, the whole teaching is try to refute, identify the wrong views, and then refute the wrong views. When a person doesn't know his wrong views, any of the five wrong views we talked about, any of them will do, and that is the one which actually creates all the floods of problems. And then the fourth one is flood of ignorance of all the above. You're not aware. You are completely grasping to aggregate as me and feeling as permanent. You're ignorant that body is not nothing substantial, nothing strong, nothing attractive, nothing lasting, but yet one is trying to grasp this as me, and all feelings are impermanent, but yet one thinks they should be permanent feeling of connection or whatever it is. One wants someone to love you, even though the loving feeling they give is by nature impermanent and largely controlled by something else than themselves. But yet you expect them to have complete control to be able to love you all the time. And you are sowing the seed of suffering because all feelings are impermanent, whether it's love or whatever it is. So therefore, don't invest in thinking someone loves you and you think they do. That's become attachment. One doesn't know that it's a flood of attachment is in which people are drowned. And they cannot let go. Even the person died or parted a long time ago. One is still mourning and groaning the person. And one thing one has had an experienced the unprecedented thing. That this is always nature of all things. But one thinks this is the first thing that happened to me alone, and then one suffers. All those post-traumatic stress disorders always clinging to impermanent things as permanent. Even the bad event though it was, but that's over and finished, and there's no trace of it now. But yet one is constantly traumatically stuck in it. Why? One is flooded by that ignorance. Worst of all flood is ignorance. Ignorance. Flooded by ignorance. In Vajrayana teachings, we talk about doing Tara practice, how to allay the fears of flood and fire. So it's all the same, when we do the meditation, when we do the Tara meditation, recite Tara mantra, so that we can be freed from the danger of being flooded, danger of being caught by fire. Of course, this practically it's true. We want the house to be free of flood and fire, but main thing is we're always flooded. In a house may be safe, but we are flooded by ignorance. There's no insurance for it unless you practice right view. Flood. Now, so if one knows the flood is suffering, and the cause of suffering is low-lying ground. Cause of flood is because you have put the building so low at a flat area. So why did you build this? Yeah, so therefore the cause of the flood is ignorance. Ignorance lowers your, even you're living on the 20th floor, but ignorance has put you in a basin, Ignorance has put you into the basin, and you will be the first one to be flooded. You might be living on the 20th floor, but you are actually in the basement, and it will flood first because you're still ignorant. So, therefore, origin of the flooding problem, suffering of flood, is ignorance that lowers you and demeans you. So that has to be apprehended. Ignorance has to be apprehended as a cause of the suffering of flood. So, third is cessation, to stop that. So, stopping of future flooding. Do you still going to live in the basement? Aren't you going to do something about it? Aren't you going to get out of that place? Yes, you should. Now, if you stop staying in a kind of low-lying area, if you're still doing ignorance, if you're still doing stupidity, and then you still, it will not stop. So we have to follow a path that'll stop. So we have to eradicate. And when you practice that Four Noble Truths, in particular when you practice the path of seeing, then you can stop the flood. Yeah. Then you're following the path. The path of seeing is the truth of the path. Because you're on the path. Your path means you're on the road to get somewhere. You're not oscillating somewhere, going round and round. You're actually leaving the place of flood to somewhere because you're on the path of seeing where it's a dry land and high ground, so you will not be flooded anymore. See? Each of these analogies are there for us to understand how to overcome being flooded. Flooded by ignorance, flooded by grasping to the aggregate as me, and feelings that people did this to you or didn't do that to you as real, and then lumping that with them and you and your relationship with them ever since. That's the flood we're talking about. People have no intention of changing their views, wrong view, ignorant view, and they are suffering as a result of that. Why it takes so long to have the forbearance and knowledge and subsequent forbearance and subsequent knowledge is because there is no reckoning. There is no awareness. Remember, the destruction of affliction is an understanding. It's not destruction of affliction. It's an understanding why things happen the way they happen. How can you do it to uncause it and do the uncausing? Then you will not see the rising of the same craving or same wrong view. Yeah? One has attained, It's called If you have, now you have obtained freedom, you have now on a dry ground, you're high ground, you're no longer. Even if there's a flood, there's no danger of you being flooded because you're on the 20th floor. You have the right view. Because of that, you do not do the ill will and grasping and craving and grasping impermanent things as a permanent. You don't do that anymore. That's the 20th floor I'm referring to. And then the fourth analogy is an enemy, In Buddhism, this word enemy, foe destroyer, they call it. The real enemy is not enemy, your own afflictions that makes you to have enmity to even to your dad or mom or someone who did so much to you, yet you have enmity to. That is which makes you, you can see all hostility everywhere, wherever you go. If it's friend to him, if you have enmity to him, you think everyone is them. And basically you multiply. Basically you create hostility from coming from everywhere because you have this strong enemy in you. People put fences and high fences and barbed wires so that no outside enemy will come in. But he's bugged by his own enmity, ill will, his craving, his self-importance, his arrogance. He is completely attacked by this enemy of afflictions, yet he has no way of discovering that. That's why he has so many enemies. One who has enemies, you wouldn't believe, can never sleep well. Always hiding, always trying to go somewhere that they can harm the enemy and they can detect the enemy. No enemy can harm. He's constantly scheming and planning and ambushing. Ill will, we're talking about ill will. He's talking about doing ill will all the time. Now that is the truth of suffering. Doing ill will and resentment is truth of suffering. You have been consumed by enemy of enemies. Ari. Sanskrit, Ari. Enemy, Ari. Arhat means one who has destroyed the enemy. Hat means destroy, one who have destroyed the enemy, who no longer harbor ill will, who no longer see enemy because he does not harbor ill will. He feels compassion if someone did something silly that actually affected you adversely. Feel compassion to them. That is one who has practiced the truth of path, developing loving kindness and compassion, and understand that what the person did is not out of ill will, but due to his own unfortunate stress and difficulties. When you have this, then you don't do enemy. You don't have enmity. You have no enemy. You destroy the real enemy in you, and then you do. Therefore, you no longer you have stopped the enemy. There's no external enemy. How do you stop external enemy? They're only projection of one who has resentment and enmity. Incredible. This is true psychology. This is when one hasn't understood one's own enmity. Wherever you go, even you left your enemy in Victoria, they will follow you wherever you go. You'll find the next job there or there again. And not because they have followed, because you have full blueprint of your suffering with you wherever you take it, wherever you go. So people think they have separated or parted from someone. Physically they have, but emotionally not. It's even worse. Further away they are, the more nearer with enmity. The enmity is still firing towards each other, and hence they are incinerated. They have heart attacks. They have nervous breakdown. Why? Because they are firing. All this, they are directly hit by the inner enemy. You don't need the external enemy to spot you and find you where you are hiding. You are killed by your own anger. And you wouldn't believe how many people are harmed by themselves more than anybody else. We are our own enemy, because ego is so treacherous. We are molded by ego. And when we don't know it, we are captured already by the enemy. So, defilements is often likened in Buddhism as enemy. And those who succeed to overcome all the defilements is called arhat. For destroyer they call it. They had dropped all enemy. They discarded anger and enemy. And when you have discarded anger and afflictions, generally speaking, then everyone is your friend. You only see friends. Even those who have a lot of problems around you, they're still your friends. Only by having such short temper or aggressive person, we can practice patience. And then you see them as a benefactor of your patience rather than cause of your enmity. Why? Because you are a follower of the noble truth of the path. You can see, when we talk about dropping, how do you drop anger? How do you drop desire? Only by having this knowledge called vipassana. Path of seeing means the insight that you gain by following the path of mindfulness, of good discipline, of compassion, of loving kindness. And then you don't have any difficulties. You don't have any enemies. Even if there's somebody does always something against you, or you see them as profound compassion to them, and they do not instigate your enmity, but arouse your compassion. So, because of that, as an ever-crying bodhisattva, you will never retaliate abuse with abuse, insult with insult, but you will tolerate them as you are. You have no inner enemy in you. How can you have anyone outside? Every single opportunity is cause for you to practice the bodhisattva's way of tolerance and forgiveness, and that is sign of one who's discarded the enmity and anger and the enemy. You don't have enemy. Why? Because you don't do it. Everyone is cause of your growth. Everyone is your past mothers. They all would be Buddhas. And they all are great benefactors for your patients. And so you are following the noble truth of the path. And when you're doing the noble truth of the path, do you find enemy? No, you don't find any enemy, Mm-hmm. And fifth analogy is cyclone or storm, So anger is like storm, Anger is so sudden, so quickly, When you're in a storm, it blows you. It blows everything around you. You lose your way. It's like that, Person is, storming with harsh words, or physically storming, or verbally saying terrible things. Verbal storming is just lashing out, attacking people and very, very furious. And that's like a storm. You're already pretty dark, You don't need another storm. You're completely caught in the cyclone. Yeah. Thank goodness some afflictions are storm-like, very instantaneous, quickly comes down. So thank goodness. So anger is that kind of affliction that doesn't stay long. So like a storm, it comes a storm, and then particularly if you can predict it, would be good. a storm coming this afternoon. you can close the windows and things like that. So storm, usually all violence, whether physical or verbal, are usually really like a storm. It's like a kind of impatient activities of a sudden kind of reaction, like an animal instinct. And a storm. Of course, the person doesn't know that they're going to lose their way. In the storm, we lose many things. Many things get blown away by a storm. You took great effort to put things there, buy those things, buy this, all blown away. You blow away all your friendship. You blow away all the kindness of others. You never regard anything. You just stormed it with some kind of a reaction. And then what is left of it? Nothing. Storm is truth of suffering. Cause of the storm, Cause of storm is no different from desire, You didn't get what you want, and then, those people who commits mass murder, like the royal massacre in Nepal, The son didn't get what he wanted. He just stormed the whole family's dinner and with gun, shot everyone. Because he didn't get what he wanted. He had no idea how lost and clouded he already is. A lot of the time, our mind is stormed by many afflictions like hostility and enmity and wrong view and whatever they are. We are stormed. We just stuck in that storm. We just don't want to get out of that. People stay very angry for days and days and weeks. Some people even months over one issue. And as a result of that, they wouldn't do this, they don't want to do this, and they just become completely blown away by the childish, storm-like, afflictive, emotional behavior. Very, very destructive. They don't know what they're doing to themselves, they don't know to others. Because storm is so like that, isn't it? So having storm-like affliction is suffering, being able to go to live a place where there is no storm-prone places, cyclone-prone places mainly in coastal cities, So why always try to go and live in the coastal cities? Inland cities have other problems, but not as frequently as coastal cities. So one should go somewhere where there's less storm and no storm. That's the true origin of storm, is where there is a location itself. So one should not locate your mind with such negative attitude, negative afflictions, those very 10 afflictions. Those 10 afflictions are still root cause we're talking about. And so, therefore, one should try to prevent a place where there's no frequency of storm. So anyway, I won't elaborate on each of the analogy and all the Four Noble Truths, but if you really thought through this carefully, it's so elucidating. These analogies are used to illustrate the teachings, so that people can see the storm and fire and flood, but they can't see the afflictions, because the affliction is so subtle and so hidden, and most people wouldn't say that. Most people say he's sick, or he's got a bad upbringing, and they don't say he's afflicted. In this society, anyway. Always saying, he's got bad upbringing or whatever. And something else is a point finger to not to affliction. But Buddhist teaching use these analogies in order to identify, recognize, and spot, and then remedy this. The sixth analogy is darkness. Often ignorance is darkness. It just you don't see. You don't know what is what. You don't care what you say. You cannot, everything becomes so dark when you're so afflicted, It's just you can't see. You don't know who is who. You don't know what you're doing to yourself. What would be the consequence of that? You forget everything. You foresee nothing. You don't even, because you're completely in the darkness. You don't know where's south, where's the west. You don't know where's light, where's darkness, because to you everything becomes so dark. So quite a lot of time we are so seized by the darkness, and the pitch darkness, without the vision of Dharma. We are in the darkness. And that's why we pray to Manjushri, please, free sentient beings, show the brilliant sun's rays of wisdom, of insight, so that the beings are freed from the darkness of karmic chains. Darkness is suffering. Cause of darkness is the origin. The origin of the darkness, of not knowing the Dharma, not knowing the Dharma, and doing the darkness is the origin of sufferings. And we need to stop the darkness. We need to dispel the darkness by switching on the light and prevent that darkness from enveloping us into the darkness. With darkness, the airplane can't land. They know exactly the airplane is down there. They still can't land, They dare not to land because there's so much cloud, so much fog, so much, the mind is so foggy and so cluster of confusion in which they are so lost in their doubts and indecisions and worries and anxieties, and they think greater the doubt, bigger the realizations. Forget it, exactly opposite. Doubt was never recommended because it's one of the root afflictions. Doubt leaning onto the facts is okay, but how often are we leaning onto the fact and doubting? Often we are leaning onto the fiction and then doubting, wrong view and then doubting, and those people who think there is no, like they're so dark. They say there's no future life because they haven't seen. It's basic blatant ignorance, blatant wrong view. Darkness. And the seventh analogy is prison. Yeah, prison. Whole samsara is seen as a prison, Sentient beings are in the prison of their own karma. So nobody enjoys suffering and being in prison, Prison is suffering. And cause of the being in the prison is one's wrong deeds, misdeeds. The person who commits wrong deeds is in the prison. His origin of prison, why he is convicted in the prison, is because his offense. The offense of his wrongdoing is the cause of his prison sentence. See, that's the origin of prison is not prison. Otherwise, it's a room, Those people who work there every day as a prison guard, they don't feel like in prison because they're actually spending more time in the prison than more longer than the prisons. Prisons come and go but prison guard is there every day. He never feels he's in prison. Why? Because he didn't do any offense. He didn't do any offense, so even though he's in prison all the time, he's just as much as in the prison. But he doesn't think he's in prison. Whereas the person who did the offense, even though he's only 3 days, he feels miserable. So it's a very beautiful analogy, isn't it? Suffering is prison. Cause of that is one's wrongdoing. And to free from the prison, to stop the prison, to get out of the prison, you need to come clean and accept your misdeeds, and then they might give you some reduced sentence, yeah. And then don't do the act again, so that then the truth of the path is not creating another offense, so to bring you back into the prison. Yes. So this analogy is, prison of samsara, yeah. And the next, number 8, is thief, Affliction is thief, Affliction steals your happiness, your joy, your friendship, your contentment. So it's a thief, And a thief, if somebody sort of, if you have been sort of burgled, you're suffering. Nobody say, I was burgled so good. If somebody has been burgled and they are suffering, oh, my this, my that, my family, my heirloom, my money, my jewelry, suffering, because the thief of affliction and your attachment to your things steals you more than thieves can steal yours. So you are suffering theft by your own affliction more than. So the cause of that is ignorance and afflictions, and stoppage of that would be when you can follow the path. When you follow the path, then you can stop the thieving yourself. And the ninth analogy is demon. Yeah, demon is often likened as some kind of like four maras. We usually talk of four maras, means demons. And demons are often very ferocious looking. They only come in the darkness and the very least expected place. Likewise, the afflictions are like that. Afflictions are very ferocious, very destructive, and frighten you to death. We should, when we see our afflictions, they are like a demon. All the Tibetan Buddhist paintings, where there's a lot of fearsome beings, Buddhas are standing on it, it's symbol of you have conquered your demon of anger and arrogance, and your malice and ill will are being stamped. You're trampling on them to symbolize that you have conquered your demon. So when you haven't conquered the demon devours you, demon possesses you to doubt, and so on. And so demon makes you become doubtful, suspicious, indecisive, always in a dilemma, or never having a clear, conscious, competent mind, not able to make these demons of wanting this, hoping this, wanting this, not wanting this. Very, very lopsided demon. We're angry, it's like that. You think you love somebody, and then you hate somebody. You love the person, but you hate some person. One moment you love him, another moment you hate him. So you can't make up mind to love them, because you think they're not worthy of your love. Then you hate them, and that is the demon we're talking about. He's a very invisible demon. He's He doesn't show very ferocious. He looks like a good, rational mind. Oh, no, I shouldn't love him. No, he's not worthy of my respect. Oh, no, yes, I should. And this kind of mind demon of indecisiveness. Lots of people, anxiety is a demon. We're talking about demon, but here we're talking really actually anxiety. Anxiety is the demon. And the anxiety causes depression. That is demon. They call black dog. Any dog will do. I think it doesn't have to be black. You're completely under the influence of the demon. And usually it's ego. And 10th analogy is disease. Yes, disease. Yes. If you are diagnosed with a disease, they say you're sick. Oh, you got this medical condition. Oh, yeah, you're sick. Yeah, affliction is a disease. Affliction is disease. Oh, disease, even physical disease has had the root origin is afflictions. If you have desire, you have strong desire, you have water retention diseases. If you have a lot of anger, you have a lot of high blood pressure and heart problems. If you have a lot of doubt and a lot of confusion, ignorance, you've got mental problem. So these are three diseases: wind, cold, and heat disease. And then dual combination, triple combination, and that mushrooms into 424 diseases. It all comes from these three root diseases. Three root diseases. Dis-ease, if you look at the English word dis-ease, it robs your ease. If you become free from disease, then you're well. So if you're well, you have discarded all the affliction, then you'll be well. Your experience, your wellness comes from absence of ill will, absence of wrong view, absence of malice, absence of craving. The reduction of those will slowly make you to, even you will, medically you will much better well. Your wellness, your health will catch up very quickly. So so most of the time, even medically there's no disease, but we still disease. Disease of the mind is not yet biologically, you can't read the pulse, right, just yet. Soon later, next few weeks, when the the doctor reads, they can see something. Now the thought, affliction, disease slowly become biology. Yeah, then even physical disease comes from the mental disease. They talk of two diseases, physical disease, mental disease. When Buddhist teaching using analogy and disease as analogy, they're mainly talking about the physical disease, which most people can see. But they don't see the mental disease. And then, 10th analogy is death. Yeah, death. Death is suffering. Disease is suffering. Being burgled is suffering. Being in the prison is suffering. Yeah, death is suffering, but you don't need to die. You already did. When you are so angry over that issue, when you're so enmity with that issue, that person, when you're so jealous to that, or you're so angry about that, you're so sort of whatever root of affliction, you already dead. Basically, death. Yeah, karmically you wouldn't live long because you're already dead. You're just like body might be living, but you're already killed by your disease, your affliction. Afflictions cause your death most frequently than the actual death. Actual death occurs only once. People are afraid of death, but they're doing death every day. They're doing death regularly. And number 12 is old age. Yeah, aging is so much a suffering. And the Four Noble Truths talks about the suffering of aging. You lose your color, or your strength, and your ability, your stature, and your ability, what you can do for others, what you can't. You depend on this. Without that, you can't do. You become completely, aging means you don't have any energy left. All the elements of the body are not harmoniously supporting. And likewise, when you are afflicted, you are aging. If you think you're aging and your energy and health is down, it's because you're thinking that is aging you more so than your body would age. Some people age much quickly than more than the body because they are doing so much aging. Mentally, emotionally, so tiring. They're so attached to things to be so permanent, so same. They're not permanent. Everything is impermanent. Everything is unsatisfactory. And when there's unsatisfactory thing, they just react as if they shouldn't be like this. And then they become aging themselves just by going against the thing. So they should... Sure, we wanted to fix something that is broken or whatever, but still we don't need to lose our sanity with it. We should not become aged by attachment to something or impermanent things as wanting to be permanent or something. Then you just accept things. There might be reasons, there are many other reasons than what you think it is. Is somebody really doing this on purpose? Is somebody really doing this to harm me or whatever? We tend to think like that. As soon as we think like that, it make us to age much quicker than the thing we lost. That thing is nothing. You can get another one easily. But you have lost your 2 years on that issue. You wouldn't believe how many people look so weak and aged just because they're doing the afflictions so unconsciously. So, therefore, old age is suffering. The cause of old age is attachment, anger, ill will, resentment, impatience. So one should not do those. When you don't do this, then you won't age quickly, physically or emotionally. You wouldn't age quickly, yeah. You wouldn't age quickly. Your aging will be slowed, Meditation, practice of Dharma, and doing good deeds should make you feel less attached to things. Then you're not going to age. But otherwise, you are aging much quicker than your biology. Why? You are doing it. You are causing it. So true origin of aging is the wrong views, is desire, is craving, is anger, is arrogance, is then ignorance. All those, remember the 10 afflictions we talked about? It's only those arhats who reach the path of seeing, they are free from that. You can see how much suffering aging is. Somebody get really, really old and they can barely get up. They forget everything. They cannot do the things they want to do, and so on. You can see how frail they have become. They used to be very able and very strong and so on. And now you can see within few years how quickly they have deteriorated and become weak. We are worse than that if you're doing anger and ill will. You think somebody is aging and look very pitiful. Wait until your anger and attachment and aversion and wrong view is aging you more quickly internally. And so, therefore, one should put a stop to this quick aging process by practicing the truth of the path. Meditate on impermanence. And let go things. Think that things are all impermanent, not just to you. Everything is impermanent. Even you are impermanent. Even everything yours is impermanent. They don't even exist at all from their own side. Think like that, you will detach from any attachment. And then you will feel well. You will not feel aged by your attachment and anger and so on. How do you discard these afflictions if you don't have this awareness, if you don't have this understanding? So when we talk about ignorance or darkness, darkness, antithesis of darkness is light. So you need the light of the Dharma. Light of Dharma comes from listening, contemplating, and meditation. And when you read, when you reflect on it, thinking dharmically, it straight away lit you. You're not in the darkness. You're not going to be aged. You're not going to fall old or strong, become old of that issue. Why? Because you got your act together and you straight away pick the pieces together to prevent you from aging so quickly. Why? Because you have right view, you have right meditation, right actions, and so on. If not, one quickly ages. Some people are only 12 years old, but they are very, very old. They have some such medical conditions. We're talking about emotional conditions. Person might be only in the late 20s or 30s, but the person is so aged, so needy, so weak, and so aged by his poor me mentality. And that's why the wrong views is such a universal affliction. Poor me. Poor me. The word poor says it all. Yeah, very aged. And the 13th analogy is poverty. Yes. When you have afflicted, your wealth means nothing, your friend means nothing, your job means nothing, your skill means nothing. You're so completely made destitute of any of the above by your anger, by your sadness and depression and all the wrong views, and that completely make you destitute. Yeah, poverty is suffering. Wait until you become so poor. They're so rich, artificially rich, but they're so poor. The material they got so much, but deep down so poor. They have no joy, no refuge, no bodhicitta. Even if they have, just comes and goes quickly. So that's the poverty we're talking about. If there's poverty, we try to alleviate the poverty. If there's poverty, we raise fund to send money quickly. If there's a flood, we raise money so that we can give money to the flood victims. If there's a fire, we try to raise funds so the fire victims. But what do you do when you are poverty-stricken by your own poor me mentality and a lack of gratitude and shamefulness, not grateful to your parents, and still think they have damaged your life, haven't done anything good to you? All these things is poverty, poor me mentality. That is suffering, truth of suffering. Truth of origin is wrong views, all the root afflictions. Truth of origin is the anusayas, the very, very hidden but slowly increasing afflictions. They just totally make you destitute. What you have, you don't see. What you are, you don't see. You only think, poor me. They don't love me. He doesn't love me. He doesn't care for me. He doesn't respect my views. Always as if nobody does care any. Because it's like a hungry ghost. Hungry ghost is even in the middle of the big pile of food. He can't see. Everything turns into desert. Everything turns because his whole mind is poverty. He doesn't see anything what he has. He's so poor in his mind. He doesn't see all his wealth is artificial. He's so discontented. So poverty. Incredible. Without Dharma, we are indeed poor. Below poverty line, they call it. People have so much, but they still want so much. Even for another penny, another couple of $100, and they just work so hard. Even with their brothers, even their siblings, they fight over it, and they're so poor they don't realize it's completely pointless to fight over it to someone, let alone with your little brother or sister or whatever. Yet people are fighting over the estate of their parents, and they're so poor in gratitude of the parents, and they don't remember the very sibling who they are taking to court is their own blood from the very parents they have get. No, they don't hesitate. They want so much. They have so much poverty. They don't see who the hell they are fighting against. They are making poorer, then both of them will be eventually poorer. I don't know who will get richer. And that's what people are doing. Good lot of time. All these amazing district court, district magistrates are full of artificial wealth people, fighting to become poorer and poorer in hope of getting richer and richer. Poverty. We're talking about. That's why Buddha lived not in a vow of poverty, vow of simplicity. In Buddhism, we don't call it vow of poverty. Other religions seems to call it. I don't know why. Because they don't know what is wealth and what is poverty. Real wealth is contentment. Natural content. Contentment is natural wealth, they call it. And material wealth is artificial wealth. Yeah. So if you don't have, contentment, you indeed are, he or she, whoever you have in your life is not good enough. Wish I was like his. Wish I was like them. Always, coveting something else, not having any value and contentment with one. That is the afflictive emotions causing you become destitute. Destitution is suffering. Cause of destitution is miserliness. Person isn't born destitute for accidentally. So, to stop the destitution, one practices generosity. One should stop the destitution by generosity. Still give small things you have to others. And when you start doing that, it will stop the poverty mentality, and you will find the way of abundance, simplicity, and contentment. And 14th analogy is conflict. Yes, when the afflictive emotions are resident in your mind, you are in conflict. You always don't get on with someone. You always have nagging feeling towards someone and think it's them, think that you have a particular fundamental difference with them, and you are right, they are wrong, and you continue to hold the view you have dug in to prove they are wrong, and then you are in conflict constantly. Your conflict will not subside until the afflictive emotions are recognized to be the cause of it. The conflict is not what the person did to you or whatever. It's your own afflictive emotions completely blinding yourself to the extent of not seeing what you're doing. Everything you do towards the conflict is going to escalate the conflict and problems. Conflict is suffering, and the cause of the conflict is stubbornness and ignorance. And the cessation of the conflict is harmony, is just don't fight over things, but make peace with people. Make peace with yourself. Don't do afflictions. And then when you do that, then there is a resolution. There is nothing. 15th one is bondage or fetter. The fetter is used. Word fetter. Fetter is used in the English language. Fetter. Fetter is like a chain. Sometimes we use the word chain in Buddhism. We are tied by the chain of karma. We are almost addicted to our weaknesses. And that's what they call fetter. And there's no difference. It's the 10 afflictions we were referring to. All the 10 discarding of the 10 affliction of the desire realm. All of this, until these root afflictions are discarded by realizing path of seeing, and subsequently with the path of meditation, all of these afflictions that we are referring to are only suppressed. Only suppressed. So interesting thing about the rest of this chapter that Vasubandu has written is he divides all these, he sort of subdivides all these afflictions. The basic method of all the abandonment of this affliction is complete knowledge of itself, the subjective nature of the affliction, and the object it giving rise to, is object that which instigate them. So defilement, afflictions are not themselves destroyed, but through understanding the object's defilement, that no longer gives rise to the fault in relation to the afflictive emotions. When it rises in oneself, it comes to be connected with one series of acquisitions or one's own habits. So defilements and acquisition of both past and present one continues on account of one not having any remedy to it. But as soon as you remedy it, the problem itself becomes the result of the absence of the problem. So there is no real affliction. Even that is permanent. Even afflictions are impermanent, thank goodness. So discarding is seeing the impermanence of the afflictions, and of course things are impermanent when it is not produced. The production has stopped. When the production has stopped, the produce wouldn't be there. So when you know how to stop the production, the produce wouldn't be there. So in this way, slowly but surely, the meditator begins to pay heed to the teachings of the enlightened one, that all these very, very obscure and hidden and very hidden nature of the afflictions are recognized by remembering these afflictions, by remembering these analogies of afflictions. And then, as a result of you engaging on the practicing on the path, then you are much more patient with the suffering and its origin. Because when you don't do the origin, which is production, the suffering is the result. Suffering is the result of the cause. There is no affliction that exists independently from its own side. And nor is the affliction permanent. Everything is impermanent, remember? So is affliction, let alone the one who has affliction. See, when you realize everything is impermanent, even sufferings of the whatever, you become patient with it. You become patient with it, knowing it will subside as long as I'm not fueling it again and again. Even there is a suffering, that isn't a bygone conclusion from past causation, So therefore you can't stop past cause. It's effect already. The suffering is there. Now question is, how quickly can you make the suffering last short by not perpetually causing more of the same? Therefore, that cessation of the continuous causation is called cessation. You stop. Because now you have the subsequent knowledge of benefit of doing the subsequent consequences of doing that. That actually gives you a reprieve or a break, or maybe even a peace, maybe abundance of peace and liberation. Yeah, because you're not causing it. You're not blaming the wrong cause or an incomplete cause of it. You're apprehending the true cause of it. Because you're apprehending the true cause of it. When the true cause is not cause, then there is a sudden stoppage. And then there is peace. There is abundance of liberation. You can see the 16 moments of the truth path of seeing is totally dependent on the ones having the merit of these understandings. It's not a skill of meditation itself. First, one has to comprehend Dharma, understand Abhidharma, and Vasubandu isn't discussing some kind of airy-fairy subject, He's talking about the raw emotions that we are all made up of. And it's not possible to see those emotions, raw emotions. And he's elucidating how to class them, understand them, and how to, if you understand the suffering, you may apprehend the root origin of it. Yeah? Dungasya means you need to understand the nature of suffering, that it is prevalent, it is impermanent. It's good, very useful understanding. Even suffering is impermanent. Oh, really? It's good to know how to make them impermanent, and not the thing there's not an authority that makes things impermanent. Okay, switch it off, and then the water suffering doesn't come, and switch it on, and the suffering comes to you. It's not like that. We have to change our attitude that it is real or it is permanent. It is not real. It is not permanent. Simple as that. The moment we do that, it's an understanding, and then meaning then abandon the true origin of it. Abandon the true origin, okay? Don't abandon the non-origin or mistaken object that you point your finger to. You try to get rid of him, get rid of that. These are not going to stop the suffering. They are not the true origin of. True origin is not that. So we always are trying to stop something, but we are often firing at the wrong object. Incorrect one. Look-alike. Look-alike. You're always attacking look-alike. The actual one is completely left unrecognized. Now we got the true origin we can recognize. No. True origin is this not seeing, avidya, not seeing for what it is, and seeing that it too is impermanent, it too does not innately exist, it too is not a monolithically existing phenomena. Even afflictions are not truly existing. It's not an original sin or original demon or curse of the what did we don't know that. So you're not subscribing to any of the eternalistic, nihilistic views. You have the right view, middle way. Even your aggregates. Your aggregates form the body. You don't get attached to aggregates. You see the aggregates as a transient collection of mere bits and pieces together. And don't try to apprehend them, me or mine or that is mine, that kind of. The moment you try to become clinging to them as me or mine, that is the one which actually is the innate grasping. So that's why it's important to see the very five aggregates are a result of birth. If we were not born, there will be none of these aggregates to have sickness to, or whatever it is, or pleasure in, or all of these things. So itself came from not itself. It came from completely fragile, completely transient factors, fluids and solid and air and a gas and food and pumpkins and vegetables and creams and soaps. So there is no concrete, monolithically, truly existing me in the aggregate. To think it is the suffering, true origin of suffering, is this grasping to the aggregate as me and thinking they are permanent. Now when one stops doing this, then you can see all the filth of defilements, or what they call 10 enwrapment, or 4 floods, or 4 bondages, or 5 hindrances, or all these different categories that Abhidharmakosha spells out, is really helpful for us to have a very good metaphysical Abhidharmic understanding of affliction and their activities. And activities of afflictions only exist when they are not apprehended. When you bring on the light, the darkness disappears. Darkness becomes light. So the afflictions are like darkness, but when you bring on the light of understanding of their impermanence, of their lack of inherent existence, and of their mere imputation, and so on, you can see the lightness you can feel. It's not dark and dense anymore. It is light and spacious. Meditation is supposed to give you enlightenment and spaciousness. So when we have the merit of studying like this, it is a very good karma, listening to Dharma, discussing and thinking. These are very, 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 it's exact opposite of destitution. This is abundance. We call yoga of listening to Dharma, you can call it. Yoga means abundance, wealth of knowledge, and validatable knowledge. So you don't have to just swallow everything as truth. You have to check and test and examine and then validate and revalidate. That's knowledge. Knowledge is power. Normally knowledge is power to earn more dollars. But this is knowledge to not have enemy within you, not to become sick, not to age, not to die while alive, not to have become poisoned, and so on. No wonder why the Buddhist literature is completely filled by these 15 analogies to enable us to spot and recognize the afflictive emotions. For otherwise, they are so hidden and so invisible to the naked eyes, and no camera can take a photo of it. It cannot, no dogs can smell it for you, you know. And it only has to be apprehended by the meditator whilst trying to straighten his posture, while watch his breath. And then he can see whether he's sinking or scattering or doubting or becoming bored or craving something or desiring something that stifle his meditation. So that's why meditation is fundamentally important, whether it's calm abiding or recitation mantra or JD yoga or whatever when you do, then you're trying to sort of lose no time to the thief. You are trying to not lose yourself in the flood of me, for me. You're trying to come out of the flood. You try to prevent being robbed by your afflictions while you're paying attention to the color, the mantra, the prayer, the mudras, and your breath, your posture. When you're very, very cognitively geared to practice, you will spot the sight. It's what they call vipassana. You will spot it. You will gain the sight of it. You'll become seer of a glimpse of it. At the beginning, you must have just a conceptual glimpse of it, until you have the flavor of the samadhi, from relishing of which you could see how much richer you become. There's no poverty in you, you know. You can give almost everything if you need to, but you still will not feel poor and without anything. You don't have attachment to things because you don't. And because of that, you are not suffering. Because of that, you are not disease. Because of that, you are not becoming sick, or because of that, you are not poor, or because of you're not in conflict, or because of that, you're not in flood, or because they're not in fire. You're flying, basically. You're flying without wings. You're flying without body. No wonder why some practitioners attain rainbow, because they basically took off. You know, their body is not combustible anymore because their body is haven't got the aggregate of me, so their body become relics. And if anything left is behind is a relics, and the body is no longer decomposing or suffering. Such were the case of the most of the arhats, you know. Their half body is burning in fire, half body is dripping with water. So they did that in order to teach the followers, to inspire them. Of course, those are the days when there were many practitioners who were meditators of Abhidharmakosha's various subjects of meditation, try to spot and then uproot the anusayas, and their flowing of it is stopped. Like they did not let the flood to flow. It just they stopped the flood. Okay, everyone. Thank you very much to this session and all your attention. And so we'll do the dedication merits. Om by the Merima the Diva Menzaga Omnis Mehaleberadobe from the ocean of Buddhism Herenda Mahayana Buddhism Vadeva Merera Mehobe Begasdelevas to the Mahayana Buddhism Courage Manju Shinode Azama Dabarela Follow Ode Zamba Ajade Ode Mere Medexalem Bodhijita Teba Verena Yedanza Veras Bimbo Mering Vrele Vedadi Generous. Thank you.